Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I have as my guest today someone who needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. You don't need an introduction because I'm sure everybody knows you, but on the other hand, it is always great to have you with us, and it is the one and the only Godless Engineer. Welcome.
Hi, how you doing there, Godless Granny?
I am doing fine. Godless Engineer and I both live in the same city, and it is hot here. It is 95 degrees outside. For those who live in areas where you use reasonable measures of temperature, what is that in Celsius? Do you know?
Oh,
I'll look it up real quick. But
I think it's probably like in maybe the 40s Celsius. I don't know. Hold on.
Let's see. It is 35.
I was close.
Yeah.
I was close.
Yeah. So for those of you who use reasonable measurements, it's 35 degrees out here.
Yeah.
Fred Harvey says it's 8 degrees outside where he is. I'm guessing Fred is in Australia.
I think 8 degrees, that would still be pretty cold on Celsius.
Yeah, it is. That's quite cold. That's close to zero.
Mm-hmm.
Limited Light sent a super chat and said, I wrote this to be difficult. Even I can't pass it. We're actually we're not actually doing the atheist test. We're actually doing the letter that came with the atheist test. But the letter is not as photogenic as the test booklet was. And so I didn't change it to letter. That also didn't sound very good. So what we've got here today is last week, as you know, we or a couple of weeks ago, last time John was here, we did a booklet that came with this letter. And today we're doing the cover letter, which is 6 pages long. I don't think we'll have time to finish it, but we'll see how far we get. And I'm going to start reading the beginning of the letter, and John has a copy of the letter as well. And so we're going to kind of take turns with it. First, Fred has told us that in Australia, we use good sense, efficiency, and practicality. And Limited Light said that Celsius 5 to 9 is negative 32 Fahrenheit.
Oh, no, it's the formula for Celsius.
The formula. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's 5 divided by 9 times whatever the Fahrenheit is minus 32.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I mean, I feel so great for anybody that can do that kind of math in their head. Mm-hmm. I've been out of school for so long, and I don't do math like that on a regular basis that it still takes me a minute. Like I would still have to count on my fingers probably.
Do you watch America's Got Talent?
Sometimes. Well, I more or less see clips, so I haven't really seen full shows, but I've seen clips.
There is a 2-year-old that they had on recently that can do math. Do you saw that one?
Yeah, I saw a clip of that. That was like, God, shit! Like that kid's put me to shame. Like I wish I was that good at math.
yeah, that was absolutely astounding. Okay. The main gist of this letter is railing against the Democratic Party. What that has to do with religion and being an atheist, I don't know, but we'll go ahead and get started. Okay.
Yeah. To comment on that, I think that it's hilarious how all conservatives paint the Democrats as being this godless party when a majority of Democrats out there are I guess what you would call God-fearing Christians. And it's so funny to me that they paint it in that way.
Yeah. There's a local group called Dem Women, which is a group for Democratic women. And I joined it, and they have a monthly luncheon. They will have candidates come and speak. A lot of them will volunteer to work the polls. A lot of them will run to become electors and so forth. And I ended up quitting the group because they were too religious. They opened every meeting with prayer. They had a devotional, and they had a prayer before the meal. And if I wanted to go to a church service, I would have gone to a church service. I came here to talk politics.
Right.
And that's the Democratic women of Huntsville.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. People that I guess people that find their faith to be integral to their political positions, they just that they can't help but to insert it like into nearly every facet like of their life. I mean, I'm not trying to like criticize too harshly, but I just even when I was a Christian, I never did that. Like I didn't pray over my meals like as a Christian. Like that felt silly to me. But if adults were there and they were like, "Let's pray," I'd be like, "Okay."
Actually, that was one of the hardest things for me to let go of. It was
Oh.
so ingrained in me that I prayed at every meal that after I quit believing, it took a while before I wouldn't start. Oh, wait, I don't need to pray, do I? Okay, we'll get started with the letter. It starts with the heading is Why is the Democrat Party so evil? With God, all things are possible. With Satan, much is possible. The current crop of Democrat leaders have overwhelmingly confirmed the previous statement. Their rallying cry is Mawa, make America weak again. And that is exactly what they've been doing for the last 100 years. Example 1 Murder Incorporated, the descent into barbarism. Over 3,000 years ago, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I really wonder what the Democrats were doing 3,000 years ago.
I have no idea how this factors in at all, but I mean, also, I've never heard anybody say "Make America Weak Again." Like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't know how to process that slogan, let alone think of it as a Democrat slogan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Over 3,000 years ago, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the only true and living God, gave the 10 Commandments to humanity through the Jewish conduit of Israel. One of those commandments is, Thou shalt not kill. The Hebrew ratash, a prim root prop. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I think prop is supposed to be prop. No, that wouldn't be
Proper?
proposition. Proper? I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe it's proper. Like it's a proper verb or a proper.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't be a noun, but it may be a proper verb. I'm not sure.
I don't know. To dash in pieces. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, it is interesting because the Bible says, Happy is he who dashes your little ones against the stones.
Well, yeah, not only that, but like there's several passages in the Bible where God is directly, like after giving the 10 Commandments, God directly tells the Israelites to kill not just like men, but also women and children and babies. Like, I don't understand this adherence to the 10 Commandments because, Louisiana just passed that law where they're going to put the 10 Commandments in like every school classroom. And like the 10th commandment
Mm-hmm.
lists women amongst property.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say to little girls in elementary schools? Like, oh, your property along with the slave people as well as ox, and well, they cross this out, they're not going to have it on there, ass, like donkeys, like
Mm-hmm.
other livestock, like you're going to classify me on the same level as like a fucking donkey.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say to small girls in I say small, but little girls, like elementary school girls, and any level of, not just elementary school, but every level of education? What does that say to them? Like it for me, if I were a parent and the school were to post that up, it would tell my daughter that she's the property of men. And
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want teachers telling my child that. Like, that's fucked up. Like, that's foo. Like, if you could point out anything that's foobarred, that concept is foobarred
Oh, yeah.
in modern
Oh, yeah.
society.
That is the subject for my video next week. I've already shot it. I haven't edited it yet, but I've already shot it. And that is one of the very points that I make. And one thing that just thrilled me was Jimmy Kimmel took and played that was reading the Ten Commandments and had pictures of Trump breaking each one of them. And I tried downloading that, and I took the audio off of it and did a test upload to see if I could use just the video from that, and I could. And so that's going to be in my video, but with me reading the 10 Commandments instead of Jimmy Kimmel.
That's awesome. Because I mean, and I kind of did that last night. Like I didn't have like the evidence. Like I just sort of went through it verbally. But it's like like every single one, with the exception of "Thou shalt not kill." Now I had I don't know how you addressed it, but I had the caveat that like, well, you could be flexible with this one. And like his whole attitude during the pandemic and everything that he said during the pandemic definitely caused the deaths of a lot of people out there. And so I feel like if you were a little bit flexible with "Thou shalt not kill," you could attribute, him to breaking that particular one. And I feel like Donald Trump saying that, "Oh, I love the 10 Commandments," is just fucking hilarious.
Absolutely. I mean, he's been convicted of fraud. He's been caught lying. If his lips are moving, he's lying. He's been convicted of pornography, or not pornography, adultery. That's the word I was looking for. The one I really liked was for breaking the Sabbath. They have a picture of him playing golf on Sunday.
I mean, you can't even pick up, sticks on Sunday, let alone a fucking golf club.
Right. Exactly. And getting back to your thing about the girls being told that they're property, I think that's problematic for the boys as well, because the message it gives to the boys is that, you're superior beings. And I worry about what kind of attitude that gives to a boy to grow up with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the Bible in general definitely promotes this message of toxic masculinity, and this whole idea that boys are superior to girls, and a certain type of boy is like superior to other boys. And so, I mean, it's very toxically masculine through and through.
Captive Desk says the orange thing covets his neighbor's stuff too. Absolutely. Wait till you see what picture they have for that. I'm not going to spoil that one. You got to wait for the video. Okay, the rest of this section. To murder, put to death, kill, man. The Democrats think it is the 10 suggestions. That is why they feel emboldened to ignore what Almighty God said. My Democrat friend, God never rescinded that command. The perverted Democrat Party has presided over the slaughter of 62 million babies, and, as an added bonus, the Yosef Mengele-like mutilation of thousands of healthy teens. Yeah, I'm not really sure what he's getting at there. First I thought he might have been referring to transgender surgeries, which are not done on teens, but the rest of the paragraph only focuses on abortion and nothing else. So I'm wondering if he means that they're mutilating girls by performing abortions on them?
I mean, I think that without more information, you could assume either one. So for me, I guess it's more of a 50-50 split on whether or not he's talking about trans teens or if he's talking about pregnant teenagers. So I probably, considering all of the rhetoric that I've heard around the issue, it seems like he's more or less talking about trans teens, buying into the whole urban myth of, trans teens being forced into transgender surgeries or whatever, transitioning surgeries. And that's just simply not what happens. Also, they seem to not understand like the process. Now, I don't know the process like
I do.
through and through. Yeah, I figured you would, but just speaking from someone who doesn't know the entire process, my guess would be that there's like a lot of like steps to go through in order to make such a decision, and like they're just not going to be like, oh, so you want to transition as a 13-year-old? Let's get you on the table. Like, I feel like that's how a lot of conservatives view trans issues and trans rights. Like 13-year-olds should be able to do whatever they want in that particular respect. But I mean, that's just not how the medical community, like in general, ever works.
My son had to, at 19, not a minor, 19, or maybe even 20, had to bring a certified letter from, or not a certified letter, but a letter certifying that he had had a year of counseling for gender dysphoria before he was allowed to take any hormones. And that's hormones. That's not surgery. That's hormones. You need a year of counseling before you can get hormones.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, they totally disregard like the reality of the situation in favor of their narrative because that's what they want to do.
Yeah. My son actually gave up on using hormones, and he did it because of how difficult they are to get. The male hormones are a controlled substance. They're like a level 1 or level 2 controlled substance. And so, he was going back and forth between Huntsville and Auburn, and they said they can't transfer the prescription if he's at one place or the other, because it's a level 1 prescribed drug. And yeah, he had all kinds of problems trying to get it. And he finally just said, it's just not worth it.
I really hate that because I assume that your son would want to, would prefer to be on the drugs, to help the transition process. Oh, no?
Well, if he had his druthers, he would appear exactly the way he does. If people could accept him as male the way he looks. The one thing that he really would like to change, though, is his voice, because his voice gives him away, and he really works hard to lower his voice. But if he had some testosterone to help him, that would really be good.
Yeah, I can imagine how that would be frustrating, and I hate that he's going through that particular struggle because it seems totally unfair, that entire situation. So
Purple Rhymes with Orange said, transitioning at 56 in one of the most liberal states, I needed a year of therapy before they would even talk to me about getting on hormones. Yeah, because that's the medical procedure. They don't just give out hormones to just anyone.
Yeah, and it's totally ludicrous, this idea that it's just like on a whim that people go through the transitioning process. Like, this is not like a whimsical fucking situation.
Okay. I think this next sentence is really worth commenting on. The Democrats have even succeeded in creating a new river in America. It is a river of blood running through every state of the union. Perhaps we should name it the Democrat River. And I find that so hilarious because in the book of Revelation, they talk about the rivers of blood that are going to go flowing through the streets. And this is what the Christians want to bring on, is these rivers of blood. And yet this guy's complaining about, an alleged river that doesn't even exist.
Yeah, it's through every state in the union, which is kind of odd because that's not how rivers operate, obviously. But also, like through every state in the union, I don't remember a new river of fucking blood being put into Alabama. Like that's something that would be like on the news. Like, today we've got our new river of blood flowing through Decatur, Alabama. Like, why the fuck is this needed? Who is supplying the blood here? Is this American Red Cross blood? I feel like it could be used better.
Well, his claim is that it's a blood, the river is the blood from the aborted babies. Although 90% of aborted babies don't even have blood.
Right.
Because they're aborted at a point in the pregnancy when they don't even have blood vessels yet.
Right. Yeah. They like, like we just covered, they like to ignore the actual process or actual information and in deference to, their preferred narrative, which their preferred narrative is blood running in the streets. When in reality, like, I believe it's what, it's over 90% of abortions occur prior to the 13th week or
Mm-hmm.
12th week.
Mm-hmm.
And most of those are just like, you pop this pill and then you pop that pill and that's it.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's basically an artificial um I can't think of the word. It's an miscarriage. It's basically just an artificial miscarriage.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And that is another good point. Oh, by the way, Mark says, Gigi, stop trying to bring facts to the arguments. They'll never listen.
Yeah, you got to figure out how to sprinkle some magic on that shit, and then they'll actually start
Oh,
listening to you.
that's what I'm missing. That's what I'm missing. But the other thing is, if God didn't like miscarriages and God didn't like aborted pregnancies, why is he causing the vast majority of them? It's been estimated that 70 to 80% of all pregnancies result in either failure to implant or miscarriage. And if God is so against this, why does he keep doing it?
I mean, that's a good question. Like, they're always asking about, why you would want to kill, the baby, the fetus and everything like that. And they act like it's bad if you just opt to not have a child. But at the same time, God opts for people not to have a child on a regular basis. And it's either that or God determines that, oh, well, this person just simply can't have children. Like, they shouldn't have children. And that's hard on that person. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, there's just so many different ways this whole idea that this person is presenting in the letter. Because if I remember correctly, they identified as some, like, what was it? Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was,
That
yeah, buddy, and aw shucks.
Aw shucks. Well, aw shucks here is definitely following along on the narrative that just doesn't comport with reality.
Mm.
And it's so sad when people do this, especially on such important topics.
You brought up something that I wasn't going to talk about, but I think I will because it's really important, even though it has nothing to do with this letter. But as I think you know, and most of my viewers know, I am a CASA volunteer. And we are starting to see something really disturbing going on. And it is probably more pronounced here in Alabama than anywhere else because of the law that was passed that shut down all the IVF clinics. But
Oh,
I would
yeah.
be interested in knowing if anyone is seeing this in any other state. If they are, it might be time to get the ACLU involved. And what is going on is it used to be that, when DHR took somebody's kids, they said, we don't want your kids. We want you to have your kids back. We want to help rehabilitate you so you can get your kids back. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And there's two attorneys that are local that are now making it almost their entire business to represent foster parents to try to get termination of parental rights so that their clients can adopt kids. And the losers in this are racial minorities and poor people. They're targeting them to take their children away. And it is awful. I did not see this case, but my supervisor saw a case where a poor mother had her child taken and put in foster care because she was unhoused, but she rehabilitated herself, got a place to live, and did everything that DHR asked. But an attorney came on behalf of the foster parents to try to get custody, And the judge ended up giving shared custody of her child to the foster parents, which should never have happened.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all.
Yeah. And a part of the problem is because the three countries where most people were adopting babies from were Russia, Ukraine, and China. And all of those are closed now. And with the IVF clinics closed now, rich people who want babies are trying to get them from poor people.
And I'm not. I almost hate bringing this up because I'm not trying to make any of this about me at all. But my wife and we've actually looked into adopting kids in Alabama, and that's just simply not possible for us because, like, all of the private adoption agencies, religious, and it's not like, oh, they're religious, but they don't discriminate for foster parents. You have to have signed letters, like, from your pastor in order to even be able to consider being able to adopt.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And there's even a problem with, like, state. The state allows the parent that is giving their child up for adoption to dictate whether or not their child goes to a religious household. So, like, if the person giving up the child wants their child to be placed in a religious household, then that's where they get placed. So basically, we're nearly shit out of luck. The only way that we would be able to adopt is if we wanted to adopt one of the I guess more I'm trying to think of the proper way to describe it, but the children that are from more dire situations where that like they're born addicted to meth or addicted to any kind of drug. Or
I know a really good 17-year-old that you could adopt, but I'm guessing you probably don't want a 17-year-old.
I mean, it's not so much about that. We're like, we looked into it to see what our options were at the time, and we were really surprised at the fact that, if we wanted a baby, like, that's nigh impossible.
Right.
And it's not that would turn us away from adopting, but currently I have a 14-year-old son, and we just kind of considered the fact that if we want to adopt, we're gonna have to adopt a child from a more troubled history, and we just kind of weighed that against with our son here, what kind of attention we would need to give to that child and everything like that. We decided that right now is not the best time, and so we may revisit it in the future, but currently, like, adoption is just kind of off the table.
I totally get that. And yeah, because from what I see, the only people that are able to get babies right now are people that are very wealthy that can afford an attorney that's going to get it for them. Okay, couple comments that I've been holding. Haven't the Republicans dialed down the anti-abortion rhetoric since the mid-elections fiasco? Some of them have. But yeah, it's definitely in Trump's platform. And it's certainly part of Project 2025.
It definitely is, like, more so because Project 2025 wants to implement a national abortion ban.
Right.
But not only that, but I think that they also want to extend that to contraception.
Yes, they do. They want to get rid of IVF, and they want to get rid of all forms of contraception. Yes. Get those women back in the kitchen and back out of the workplace where they belong. Their husband owners need to keep control of them. Marcelo also asks, isn't that illegal? That doesn't make sense. And yeah, it is illegal to discriminate, although there's some things, if you're a religious organization, you can take religion into account, but you can't specifically discriminate. But there's ways around it. There's always ways to say, well, we found something else wrong with your application.
Yeah, and not only that, but like I said before, like if the family or the parent that gives up the child wants the child to be adopted into a religious home, then that's a way around the
Right.
discrimination thing, because it's like the parents want this. Honestly, I feel like that's a little bit bullshit. Like if the parents are giving the child up to adoption, I feel like they're giving up rights to the child,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can't dictate like if the child goes to a religious home or not. I feel like as long as the parents that are looking to adopt like pass the necessary criteria for being a good home, regardless of the religious affiliation, I feel like they should be able to adopt. But sadly, I live in a very we live in a very red state and a
Mm-hmm.
very religiously conscious state,
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of that just kind of gets pushed under the rug because there's a lot of assumption that just everybody's religious, and hopefully that's changing, but I don't have high hopes for in my lifetime that to change in a way that could benefit me in a way, but it might be able to benefit like people later on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, finishing up the section on abortion. Abortion, this is all underlined. Abortion is a religion to the Democrats because they are incapable of any other. The most dangerous address in the country is not New York City or Chicago. It is the womb. And, I would comment on that the most dangerous time to be a woman is while you're pregnant or the first year after you give birth. More women are killed during that time than any other time in their lives. So I don't think the womb is the dangerous place to be.
I don't think it is either. I mean, I think a woman's womb, or sorry, just a person's womb, has become one of the most legislated things, and has really become part of the national conversation, or the wider conversation. And I think that that's just so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I know, at least for me, I wouldn't want somebody dictating whether or not I could get a vasectomy. Like that's just simply not your choice. That's a
Right.
choice between me and my doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with pregnancy, or any other kind of issue along those lines. Like that's between a person and their doctor. Like regardless of how anybody identifies or anything like that. Like that's between a person and their doctor. Like that's what Roe v. Wade was ruling on, is like privacy,
Mm-hmm.
and whether or not you had privacy between doctor and patient. And now the Republicans are like, well, we only care about privacy when it concerns our own privacy, but not like women in general. Like we just don't give a fuck about that.
Because women are just property.
Yeah, exactly. Women are property. We're going to treat them like property. Also, we're
Mhm.
going to put the 10 Commandments in every school classroom so that even little girls are taught their property. So,
Mhm.
this is the party of the moral values, everybody.
Let's see. They even want law-abiding citizens to become an accomplice to murder by using our tax dollars to fund murder. Ain't that rich? I am requesting that everyone who reads this letter to take the short quiz below before proceeding. There's only one question, so I'll have everyone answer this question. Do you wish your mother would have aborted you? Yes or no? Please check only one. I can't. Some days the answer is yes, and some days the answer is no.
I mean, there have definitely been times in my life where I felt like yes would have been the answer.
Mhm.
Currently, my answer would be no, because I mean, I rather like my life, but also, like, I mean, I didn't have a choice about that. Like,
Mhm.
if like would I have told my mother, yes, you should get an abortion? Well, if she was like, I can't afford this child, I don't want this child is gonna grow up in poverty and everything like that because I'm uneducated and all this other stuff. Like, if that were the case, then I would tell any mother that, like, look, you need to do what's right for you. And if that means that I'm not born, then I guess so be it. I'm effectively not going to give a shit because I was never fucking born. It's like, well, what do you think happens after you die? I think that I can't remember who said this. But it's like, well, what happens after you die? I don't know. I'm fucking dead. I'm not going to care what happens after I die because I'm fucking dead. And I feel like it's the same thing with the abortion question. Like, I'm never going to be alive, so it's not going to matter to me. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to have an opinion because there's no way I could have an opinion. It seems like a question that begs the question, because obviously anybody that's alive now, barring certain points in life where maybe you're suffering from clinical depression, like I have in my past, you're going to say, no, I'm glad to be alive. But I mean, that is really not the question, right? The question is whether or not women should have control over their reproductive organs.
Right.
Or people should have control over their reproductive organs. And I unequivocally, no matter what the situation, I would be like, the woman should have the ultimate say over her reproductive organs. And it's so crazy to me that someone would try to beg the question in this situation to get you to agree with them about, oh, well, you wouldn't want to be aborted, so why would you abort any fetus or blastocyst or anything like that? It's a really dubious way to have a conversation.
Okay, we now move into the next section, and John is going to read the next section.
Ooh, yes. I'm going to read it in my special voice. I feel like it requires it. Isn't that special? The Democrat Party is one of the few groups in America that can trip over an elephant and dance around a gnat. What does that mean? I don't know. Okay. The following observation will confirm it. Those in the Democratic Party, love to challenge the traditional meaning of words, much like their Marxist compadres. Let's see. Is the next page, I'm certain that thousands of young children? Okay.
Yep.
I'm certain that thousands of young children will be greatly comforted to know that they were not assaulted by a pedophile, but rather by a minor attracted person. Isn't that special? Now, instead of child mutilation, we have gender reassignment surgery. Now, they have just lumped it all into one neat label: healthcare. I mean, we're not the ones that are changing things, like changing words or changing definitions or anything like that. Like, typically, from my experience, is that the current conservatives love to change words, change their meanings and everything like that, mostly to soften it and try to sneak it into the general cultural awareness of the topic. But like, minor attracted person, that still sounds creepy.
Yeah.
Like, that's not better than pedophile. Like, everybody knows pedophile. Minor attracted person sounds like a pedophile that's like trying to do the conservative thing. Like, that's what that sounds like. I don't see any Democrats being out there like, oh, minor attracted people are just fine. Like, that is nowhere in the Democratic like party line, as far as I know. I mean, if any Democrat out there started, saying that kind of bullshit, I'd be like, no, this is not. This is not the way, my man.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I think that his little statement here about child mutilation kind of illuminates how earlier that they were talking about, mutilating teenagers and everything like that. I feel like he's definitely this person is definitely talking about the transitioning, and so it's definitely this person definitely has a problem with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, but I also look at the fact that Christianity and Islam are the two biggest purporters of mutilation of genitals.
Yeah.
Christians and Jewish people want you to mutilate little boys, and the Islamic community wants you to mutilate little girls. And yeah, they're the ones that are doing it, not us.
Listen, it's not genital mutilation as long as you're doing it for God. I'm just saying. God said, cut the tip of your dick off, and that's all. Also, for the Muslims, God said to, desensitize the women. So, cut them off too. Apparently, as long as God says it, it's perfectly fine. There's a disturbing amount of people that have that particular position, and I feel like, just like the meme says, it's too damn high. The number of people that are fine with genital mutilation, like real religious genital mutilation, is too damn high. Like, it's more than 0, and 0 should be the standard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. The Democrats go into an orgasmic frenzy when any one of them utter the words health care. It helps to provide cover for their wicked sin. Their party is so infested with demonic entities that they can't even define what a woman is. What a woman is. Sorry. I read it how my mind correctly put it. They can't even define what a woman is. Even though approximately 10 billion people who proceed them express no such excruciating difficulty. Because fuck, like, becoming more socially aware. Fuck understanding sexuality and gender better. Fuck increasing our knowledge about the human experience. Fuck all that. It has to definitely adhere to a 1692 definition of what it means to be, one gender or another. Like, let's just go back to the fucking Middle Ages with this bullshit. Sorry, I'm 2 beers in right now.
You are more than welcome. You are more than welcome. I do have a comment that I'm going to bring up here. Lilith Roxy says, wait, I'm ex-Muslim and I never heard about that. And I do get that, because that is not done here. It's illegal here in the United States. But in some Muslim countries, they do, not all, but in some Muslim countries, they do cut off a girl's clitoris, and they call it female circumcision. And they do it so that a woman will not, so that when they get to be women, they will not feel pleasure with sex. And so they're less likely to commit adultery.
Ironically enough, I mean, it's not about adultery, but I've heard that the original surge in Christians doing the circumcision on their children, at least here in America, was due to this whole idea that it will prevent them from masturbating, and I guess feeling pleasure in that way. And that just fucking backfires. Like, hey, it doesn't feel as good as it would have, but they're still playing with themselves. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's stupid.
Do you want to do the next section since mine was so much longer?
Sure, I can.
Okay, go ahead.
I got a little bit more in this section, I believe.
Oh, okay. I thought you were done with that section.
No, I just I have so, like, I'm very wordy. I'm a wordy bitch. Think of it, my friend. 10 billion people simply never noticed. Isn't that special? George Orwell said, "There are some ideas so absurd that only an intellectual could believe them." We now know that there are some ideas so absurd that only a Democrat could believe them. Example 2. My sin is better than your sin. Those individuals involved with the LGBTQ, etc. movement are in grave danger. Grave danger. I don't know why you had to repeat that. Is there any other kind? Demons seek to sabotage the identity of the person they want to possess. This is why the demon, not the man, answered Legion, meaning many. Luke 4:31 through 35, Niv. Mark 5:1 through 13, Niv. Obviously, the man's name was not Legion. The identity of the person he, demon, controlled. I just have to laugh whenever the demon, he, the demon that obviously exists, was now totally submerged and subservient to the demonic entity dominating his mind. Demon possession is most often associated with sexual sin, especially with abnormal, perverted sexual practices. I'm getting a hint, like a vibe of projection here.
The thing that I'm really, well, there's a bunch of things that I'm really wondering about here. Number one, if everyone in the LGBTQ community, myself included, is all demon possessed, and that's why we are the way we are, is because we're all demon possessed. Is it our fault? Is it our fault that we're demon possessed?
I really don't think so. I mean, I feel like demons would infest anybody, like if they exist, they would infest anybody that they think would advance their particular agenda. And so, like, it's not like, I mean, obviously people that are doing, like, I guess, rituals to be possessed are asking to be possessed. But I have to question how much that actually happens. Like, how much is it, or how many times does it actually happen that people are doing rituals so that a demon can possess them? Also, wouldn't that turn the demon away? Like, I feel like the demon would be like, well, now it's not fun anymore. Like, it's not fun to take you over if you're asking me, like, inviting me into your house. Like, I want to break into your house, kind of thing. Like, at least that's the feeling that I get from a lot of religious people about it.
And I happen to be asexual. That's where I am on the LGBTQIA spectrum. And I'm wondering, if I got a asexual demon, first of all, what's our sin? How are we sinning? What are we doing wrong?
Well, obviously, sinning, is a transgression against God. So if you're doing anything that God has said that he doesn't like, or that your local pastor doesn't like, and he says that God doesn't like, then that's a sin. And that's why I hate the whole idea of sin, like, in general. Like, it seems like a magical and nonsensical, like, criteria. And so I simply just don't give a shit about sin. Like, I mean, if you want to explain to me why my behavior hurts other people or is bad for me or something like that, fine. We can have that conversation. But otherwise, I don't care about the preferences of your magical wizard. And I mean, maybe some people might take that as me being a bit caustic or abrasive, I guess is a better word. But I mean, that's how I feel about, like, any of the God definitions that we have now. He's basically just a cosmic wizard that enacts his will on reality. And the fact is that we just don't see any of that at all, like, as far as, like, real effects of that. So there's no reason for me to believe in a magical cosmic wizard. And therefore I don't care about whether or not I offend him,
Hmm. The other thing I'm wondering is, demons are supposed to be spirit beings, not physical beings.
Yeah.
So why would they be interested in sex? They're not going to get any pleasure from sex.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess it's because God hates sex. So obviously, they're demons want you to have sex or have something to do with sex.
Mhm. Okay, let's continue on. Go ahead, John.
Okay. Let me get back to my place real quick.
I can pick it up if you like, because I know where you left off. Because you actually
No,
left
sorry.
off right at, go ahead. You got it? You got
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
You
I've
look
got,
here,
I've
boy.
got, I've got it. I
Okay.
started way too far at the top, but I've got it now. The identity of the person he demon controlled was now totally submerged and subservient to the demonic entity dominating his mind. Demon possession is most often associated with sexual sin, especially with abnormal, perverted sexual practices. In the Bible, these demons are called unclean spirits, and they're typically associated with people who perform lewd acts in a public setting, like gay pride parades.
You know, John, I've read the Bible through 5 times from cover to cover, and
Mhm.
far more than that, just spot reading. And I don't recall a gay pride parade in the Bible anywhere.
I also don't know of lewd acts in a public setting. They might be referring to Sodom and Gomorrah, but that story is more about being inhospitable and less
Right.
about, uh, you know, I guess being gay. Like a
Hmm.
lot of Protestants want to portray it as being gay is the problem, but it's really because the towns were just inhospitable to the angels, and
Right.
so it's crazy. They are extremely intent on being noticed, which is a characteristic of pride. Hence the term gay pride. All LGBTQ, etc. persons run the risk of losing their identity because of this phenomenon. It's really weird because I feel like that's people finding their identity, not
Hmm.
losing their identity.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Miranda says this person is really obsessed with abnormal, perverted sexual practices.
So I was saying, it's projection. Like
Hmm.
they're projecting, and
Hmm.
I get that vibe. The projection vibe is strong with this one. They create gender confusion in the mind of their host in order to control them with ease. This always leads to bizarre and desperate behavior, and in some cases, suicide. See, that's just shitty right there. Because like the reasons why LGBTQ individuals suffer from a higher suicide rate is because of the fact that they don't have a good support structure to help them along in discovering their either their sexual identity or their gender identity. Like they don't have the support structure that these heavily religious people love bomb their congregants with. So obviously if you have somebody that's struggling with these preconceived notions about sex and gender, and they grow up in an area where people are constantly pushing them in this like heteronormative sort of position, obviously that's going to have a lot of emotional effects on the person and can drive up the risk of clinical depression and suicide.
Hmm.
So to paint it in the light that this fucking shithead is painting it in is just, it's horrible and it's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got into a conversation with a couple people on Twitter the other day, and one of them said, well, it allowing um, transgender people to have health care is harmful, not helpful. So I posted 6 articles that told otherwise, and the person, you just could not get through.
Yeah.
You just can't get anywhere with these people.
Yeah, so I regularly push back against Ben Shetler on
Mm,
Twitter, and
mhm,
he's of the opinion that like, oh well, it's good to spread the truth, but like his truth is to deny the existence of trans people and LGBTQ persons. Like
mhm,
that's not helpful for anybody, and that's not truth. Like these people exist, and so like I constantly push back against him, and it doesn't do anything. Like he's just sitting there like, well, this is the truth, and you're not spreading truth, and so you're wrong. And like he never substantiates anything that he says. And it's really sad because like he's got a fairly prominent position in a couple of creationist sort of organizations, so it's like no duh. But
mm,
at the same time, like he is an influential person, minorly influential person out there that is pushing people into the direction of denying LGBTQ persons their own identity. And like that's
mhm.
hurtful. But
Right.
he's been able to reframe it as being helpful and truthful and
Mhm,
good. Like
mhm.
it's so ridiculous.
And they say that we're the ones that are calling good evil and evil good.
Yes. And
Mhm.
that's so like crazy to me. All right. Let's see. This always leads to bizarre and desperate behavior, and in some cases, suicide. Satan is a malevolent spirit, and his ultimate goal is to deprive God of the most important thing of all to him, a personal relationship with you, the reader. Now, God is more focused on getting praise and less
Mhm.
on personal relationship. Like, if God could get the praise without having the personal relationship, he would, because he's already done that. Like he didn't
Yeah.
have a personal relationship with all of his congregants in the Old Testament. It's only a personal relationship that's emphasized like in the newer parts of the New Testament. And so like God has already been that dick that doesn't want a personal relationship with anybody, and he just wants people to worship him. Like that's what he cares about.
I find it so weird that, that people say that, God, this is all about a personal relationship. And yet, first of all, there is nothing in even the New Testament that ever says that God wants a personal relationship with you. But secondly, people seem to think,
Mhm.
Christians seem to think that it would be it's forcing you into the relationship. It's forcing you to say yes. If God were to personally come to you and say, "Hey, you want to have a relationship with me?" And they use and a number of them use proposals as an example, and I say, "Come on, if a guy came to me and said, 'My friend wants to marry you,' and asked me to come and ask you for him," I'd say, "No! Heck no! If your friend wants to marry me, let him come and ask me himself. You don't send someone else to come and ask me for him. That's ridiculous." We are actually almost out of time, so I'm gonna go ahead and
Okay.
stop us here. We only got through 2 pages of the letter. It's a 6-page letter.
Like I
Um
said, I'm so sorry. I'm a wordy bitch and I have
Oh,
a
hey,
lot of
no,
opinion.
no, everything that you had to say, I put in comments as well, and I think our comments were on point, and I think they were important things that needed to be said. Um, and we had a lot of fun doing it at the same time, which was exactly my goal because, the letter is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Hey, anytime you want me to come back on and like continue going through the letter, like I'm down for it. Like this is so much ridiculous bullshit. I mean, it's like every talking point that conservatives have been going through, like in the
Mhm.
wider public discussion, they seem to be coming up in this letter. So I mean, I think it's a
Yep.
good example
Yep.
of like all of the talking points that they're going to be throwing out this election season.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. John Oliver's most recent video was really good. He points out a lot of what Trump wants to do through Project 2525, which, I've heard Jenny Morgan, sounding the alarm on Project 2025 for over a year now, and I've heard very little of it coming from the mainstream media. And I'm glad to see that it's finally making its way into the mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you like to tell listeners what you have coming up on your channel in the near future, John?
Oh, sure. Well, right now, so I'm pretty knee deep in getting an audiobook edited up.
Okay.
And just for everybody that's kind of curious, I've been kind of vaguely referencing it. KC last summer read through audiobook style Jesus from Outer Space, which is
Oh,
Richard
Richard
Carrier's
Carrier's
book.
book.
Yeah, and because Rick asked us to do an audiobook for it and get it edited up and sent to him. So I've been working pretty hard the last year on getting it edited and everything, and I'm on the home stretch right now of getting it ready, and so I'm trying to get it to where it can get published soon. So it'll be an audiobook of Jesus from Outer Space, and I'm working on getting that done. So there's that that I've been pretty heavily working on. So for my channel, what that means is that there's probably going to be a lot of like clips and very few like new videos that are going to get posted up. I do try to do some new videos on occasion, but I'm pretty heavily entrenched in getting the audiobook done. But what that does mean is that I've been on, the line a lot more. And next month, I'm proud to say, after 12 years of doing all of this, I finally got invited on the Atheist Experience. And so
Nice.
I'll be on the Atheist Experience July 7th next month.
Okay.
And then I'm going to be on Truth Wanted on the 19th of next month. That's in addition to my other like the line activities that I'm going to be doing. So
Mhm.
I'll be live on those, and then I'm also live nearly every Friday night. I plan on keeping that up. I really like doing the live shows and everything like that. I've also got some ideas for other live shows to do on my channel. That way I have some fresh content that's not just like clips that I pulled from other appearances. So that's pretty much all I have.
Okay. Very good. And next week there will be no live show. Next week I am going to Montana. Going to spend a day in Glacier Park, and we're going to bury my dad. My dad put my mom's ashes in Flathead Lake at her request. She grew up in Polson, Montana, which is right on Flathead Lake, and I ended up with my dad's ashes after over a year, and I really felt like he belongs with my mom. So next week I'm going to be in Montana putting my dad's ashes in Flathead Lake. And then the following week, my guest is going to be, and now I forgot the name again, Freed Thinker Podcast. And that should be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, he doesn't like me all that much, but
Oh,
I
really?
hope that you have a great stream with him.
Okay, wonderful. And thank you to everyone in the audience for coming. It has been a pleasure to have your comments and questions. And thank you especially to John for helping me with this letter. It has been a hoot as well as enlightening.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I enjoy these thoroughly, and like I said, anytime you want me to have me back on to continue reading through it, I'm all here for it.
Great. We will do that. Live your life.